You shouldn't go back even after giving birth.
Grandma? What do you mean? I didn't understand why my grandmother would say something like that. So I consulted with my mother, and she said the same thing. Actually, your grandma has mysterious power. I thought she was teasing me. But then, something unimaginable happened. My name is Leona, a 32-year-old housewife. It has been 3 years since I married my husband Nick. We met at a group date, and he pursued me relentlessly, which led to us dating. I've always been weak to advances and attracted to aggressive people. My husband was also that type, but he had a stable job at a reputable company and was older, so I had no worries. And then, after just 6 months of dating, he proposed to me.
I believe in destiny. And for me, you are my distant partner, Leona. So, even though we've only dated 6 months, I don't want to lose you. So, I'm asking you to marry me.
There was no way I could refuse such words. I immediately gave my consent. And so, we decided to get married. We greeted each other's parents, and soon after, we had our wedding ceremony. I never thought that within a year of having a boyfriend, I would be getting married. But receiving congratulations from so many people made me feel incredibly happy. And thus, our newlywed life began. My husband had expressed his desire for me to focus on our home once we get married, so I became a full-time housewife. From then on, I worked hard on household chores to support my husband. I thought I would lead a more career-oriented life, but unexpectedly, I became a housewife. Life is unpredictable. However, I felt very happy. I diligently cleaned the house and prepared elaborate meals to coincide with my husband's return. Just seeing him enjoy the food made me feel happy. Since he had a busy job, he often had to work on Saturdays. But we could eat dinner together every day, and Sundays were our relaxing time as a couple, so I was satisfied. And my husband had been expressing his desire for a child early on, so we were actively trying to conceive.
It will be better to have children while we're young, right? And it would be less burdensome in various ways. And I believe our child would be absolutely beautiful.
I was delighted that my husband cared so much about raising a family. Mom, Grandma, I'm home.
Welcome home, sweetheart.
Grandma, are you feeling okay?
I'm doing quite well now. It's probably because I got to see your face.
I'm glad you say that. Is Nick on another business trip this week? While I was talking to my grandmother, my mother asked me. Yeah, he's been quite busy lately, as he's been assigned a new project.
Work being busy is always a good sign.
Yeah, we rely on Nick's income after all.
But Leona, you're also doing your best with household chores. That's an important job too.
My grandmother has been bedridden and in need of care for a few years now. With my father and grandfather leaving sufficient inheritance, my mother can focus on taking care of my grandma without having to work. Whenever my husband is away on a business trip or other reasons, I regularly come home to help my mother.
I actually thought you, being part of the younger generation, would be working vigorously. I never expected you to get married and become a housewife.
While sipping tea, my mother said so.
Yeah, right? I never thought I would become a full-time housewife either. I always thought you would settle into a family life early, Leona.
Really?
Ah, yeah. Mom did say that before. Wow, that's amazing.
How did you know?
Well, it's like a gut feeling, I guess.
Female intuition?
It's a little different than that. It's not really necessary right now, though.
Huh. Now I'm curious. My grandmother sometimes makes such remarks, and I can't tell if she's joking or being serious. I play along with her sense of humor, but sometimes I wonder if she's actually being serious. I really love my grandma, who's full of humor like that. From the first time my husband met her, he held her in high regard.
Your grandmother has some kind of aura, right?
Yeah, I think so too. She's awesome. While recalling the conversation with my husband, I thought about how I wanted to bring him home to my parents' house once his work settled down. During that time, something very happy happened. I suddenly felt unwell and rushed to the hospital. There, the doctor told me, "Congratulations, you're pregnant." What? Seriously? I was indeed pregnant. When I told my husband, he was extremely happy.
Leona, thank you. I'll work even harder from now on.
Seeing my husband so joyous, I couldn't help but feel happy too. I called my mother and grandmother to share the news, and they were both overjoyed.
Finally, we'll have a great grandchild. I'm glad I've lived this long. Leona, why don't you come back here for childbirth? Take a break for a while.
Grandma made such a suggestion over the phone. Indeed, my husband has been busy with work lately, coming home late at night and going on business trips more often. I suppose my grandmother is worried about me being alone in that situation. Yeah, let me talk to Nick about it. After ending the call, I discussed it with my husband when he returned home from work.
Going back home for childbirth?
Yeah, normally people go back when their belly gets bigger, but you've been quite busy with work recently, haven't you? So I thought it would be better to go back home earlier and prepare for the childbirth in a relaxed state. I said hesitantly to my husband, "If I have a homecoming childbirth, it means that my husband will be responsible for the household chores during that time." But surprisingly, my husband readily agreed. "Yeah, that's totally fine." "Really? Won't it be difficult for you to manage chores without me?" "Don't worry, I'll be fine. Besides, I feel bad for leaving you alone for a long time. I feel more at ease when you're with your mom and grandma." "Is that so? Well, if that's the case, then it's great. I'll go back home earlier." I'm glad my husband is such a kind person. I quickly packed my things and went back to my parents' house. My mother and grandmother warmly welcomed me, and I spent a relaxing time there while preparing for childbirth. "Come on, eat a lot. I made a lot of your favorite dishes, Leona." "Wow, thank you. But I can't eat this much." My mother made a lot of delicious food for me. I thought I wouldn't be able to finish it all, but I had a huge appetite and finished everything in no time. Oh my, who was the one saying they couldn't eat all? Well, your cooking is just so delicious. I was truly enjoying a peaceful and relaxing time. And as my belly grew bigger, indicating that childbirth was approaching, my grandmother said something like this.
Leona, even after giving birth, don't go back.
Grandma, what do you mean?
You don't need to understand the details right now. But until things settle down, you mustn't go back.
I didn't understand why my grandmother said such things. What did she mean? When I consulted my mother about it, she said something similar. Actually, your grandma has Mysterious power. Mysterious power?
Well, it's like the ability to foresee the future, I guess. If Grandma tells you not to go back, it's better to listen to her for now.
My mother said that with a serious expression. At that moment, I thought she was teasing me. But then something unimaginable happened. I told my husband that I would stay at my parents' house longer after giving birth. And then he said,
Until when? Until what day are you planning to stay there?
Nick?
Because I want to meet the baby as soon as possible.
But you're going to be here for the childbirth, right?
Well, yeah, of course. I plan to be there, but if I get called for work, it'll be difficult, you know? Besides, your parents' house is pretty far.
I see. Well, I don't think I'll stay for too long. I just need some time to settle down.
Right, got it.
My husband reluctantly agreed to let me stay at my parents' house even after giving birth. I myself wanted to go back home soon and let my husband hold the baby. However, my mother and grandmother strongly advised against it. So I reluctantly accepted their opinions. And then I safely gave birth to the baby. A cute baby girl was born.
She looks just like an angel. She takes after you, Leona.
My mother and grandmother were holding the baby with great joy. That made me happy too. I was grateful that my grandmother had lived this long. In the end, my husband couldn't be there for the birth due to work reasons. So he planned to come and pick us up a month later. But a few days before my husband's arrival, my grandmother said something again.
Leona, just stay here and raise the child.
Huh? Grandma? Why are you saying this again? Mom, you're siding with Grandma too. What's going on with both of you? Why won't you let me go back to Nick? When I said that, they revealed a surprising fact to me.
Actually,
upon hearing that, I made up my mind to divorce my husband.
Leona, long time. You good?
Nick, come inside. Let's go up. I led my husband to the guest room almost silently. My husband didn't seem to notice my uneasiness and eagerly wanted to meet our daughter.
All right, where's my baby girl? Oh, here she is. She is an angel.
Saying that, my husband lifted our daughter into his arms. That was his first and last opportunity to bond with her. And then my grandmother began to speak.
Put her back in the crib, Nick. Can you sit there? Yes.
Seeing the stern expression on my grandmother's face, my husband sensed the tension in the air and obediently sat on the couch.
I'll get straight to the point. Will you divorce my granddaughter?
Divorce?
Why would you say that?
You know why, don't you?
I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Were you planning to leave my granddaughter from the beginning?
My husband seemed a bit shaken by my grandmother's words.
I mean, what is this all of a sudden? No need to make an excuse. I can see many things, you know. What? See what? You've been secretly meeting another woman, haven't you? The shadow of a woman is quite prominent behind you. What? What are you talking about? This is crazy. Her name is Mandy, right? She's the same age as you, 36 years old.
As my grandmother said that, my husband's face turned pale.
I don't know any woman like that. So, I see. So she works at a place called Ginger Hair, right? I can see everything, you know?
My husband seemed quite disturbed by my grandmother's words.
I don't have much time left. So if you do anything to further sadden my granddaughter, I will curse you. Being like me, with this ability, can possess someone, you know?
My husband was completely terrified, trembling in fear.
Tell everything you planned,
prompted my grandmother. My husband confessed everything. It turned out that he had a relationship with another woman even before marrying me. However, that woman was unable to conceive a child. But they desperately wanted a child. So they planned to have someone else bear a child and then adopt and raise the child themselves.
What you're doing is fraud. It's a crime. After filing a complaint against you, Leona will raise the child.
My husband collapsed to the ground. But no matter how he struggled, there was no way for him to win. True to my grandmother's declaration, I obtained custody of the child after the divorce. I also sued my ex-husband for fraud and claimed compensation for the adultery. Both my ex-husband and his affair partner ended up burdened with a large amount of debt. Furthermore, both of them were fired from their jobs after their company found out about their fraudulent activities. By the way, but my grandmother used to be a company executive. I had always thought my grandfather was the president, but it turns out my grandmother started the company. And when my grandfather was the president, she was the chairwoman. Thinking about how I would have lost my daughter to my husband if it weren't for my grandmother, I shuddered. I'm truly grateful to have my grandmother. Afterward, I continued to live in my parents' house, spending happy days with my mother, grandmother, and daughter. My grandmother's health seemed to improve even more as my daughter grew. My daughter adores my grandmother. Though she can't speak yet, they seem to have conversations through telepathy, locking eyes with each other. I wonder if my grandmother's mysterious powers are being inherited by my daughter. I don't know how much time we have left together, but I want to cherish the time with my grandmother in this family.